The first rule of Aquarium Club is nobody talks about Aquarium Club, except for everywhere they go. All right. Old school people started most of the Aquarium Societies. Not all of them. There's some new ones starting all the time. But the whole concept came about a long time ago, people. So what was an Aquarium Society like back in the old days? I don't know them all. I only know one. I was actually there, not one of the founders, but in the very earliest days of Greater Portland Aquarium Society in Portland, Oregon. And we had different things. And I've learned over the years that most aquarium societies have a lot of the same stuff or similar. Some have other things, but let me talk about what we had. First off, we had a table. And when you showed up, we were just starting. There weren't very many of us. But those of us that were there every month, we would bring some freebies. Whatever we had that we wanted to give away. Some old equipment, magazines, sometimes some plants or fish even. And those tables, we had an opening time, but they were basically first come, first served. It was a good way to get people there ahead of time. I forget, I think we opened those tables at 1:15, 15 minutes till the meeting. You know, for us it was a good way to get rid of something we didn't want, or, you know, if we had too much of, or we just wanted to be nice to the other people in the club. It wasn't all trash either. We didn't bring trash. We brought good, useful stuff. And we also had an auction table. The first stuff we auctioned off, every penny went to the club. The next group that we auctioned off was for all the members. And they got a percentage, I don't remember, but it wasn't about getting a lot of money. Sometimes we had more than once where somebody would bring some fish, for example, and they'd put them on the auction table and then they'd buy them back. They'd put them in the club section. It was their way of supporting the club, and if, like one guy said, well, if somebody really wants these fish, he said, I'll let them have them, but they're going to have to pay a big price. So we had fun. We had bowl shows every month. One of the things we did that I don't know that all the aquarium societies do anymore is we enforced the rules. You know, your bowl show tank had to be a specific type and description and so forth. And we enforced the rules. We had an open class every month, and we had one other class, and they were pretty large because we didn't have a lot of contributors, but there weren't many of us. So, and for those of us who live a long ways away, transporting is a real pain. Today I live almost 120 miles away from where the Aquarium Society I'm a member of meets, and getting there is just not always possible for me. Transporting fish is worse, because usually I go down for 2 or 3 days. Visit my mom, you know. We had a breeding program. Breeding was much harder back then. These days, you know, we've had so many people breed fish before us that breeding most fish is pretty much, you know, go to YouTube and watch something and you'll learn how. But our breeding programs were somewhat competitive. We had grow out contests a couple times. They never took off. People didn't participate. I know some aquarium societies still try and do that. Most people don't participate from what I've seen. One reason is because most people don't have enough extra fish tanks to just take a 2 or 3 or 5 fish or whatever, just to see how far they can grow them out. Let's see, we also had a newsletter. Yeah, I was a contributor. I have been an editor for many newsletters for many nonprofits over the years, well, several, not many. And one thing I find is newsletters in nonprofits and hobby organizations are usually only successful if one person is dedicated to them, and if that person stops, they stop until somebody else takes over. You know, looking at modern aquarium societies, and I've watched some videos on YouTube and I've read some descriptions on the web, and I think the new school days needs to forget some of the old school ways when it comes to aquarium societies. First off, one I don't see anymore anywhere is the freebie table. That seems to be gone. Maybe that's not a bad thing, I don't know. But if you're a new startup group, you ought to consider it, you know. At least try and see if it works for you. Like I say, the best thing about it, in my opinion, was it got people to show up early. They might get something free. And you know how people are, they all like to get something for free. One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people are bringing stuff and they're dumping it at the monthly auctions. I think the clubs ought to have, or societies ought to have a rule that anything that sells for less than $10 at the auction is 100% club donation. You know, and frankly, at the big semi-annual auctions, I know that there's stuff that nobody wants and the club ends up storing it. Yeah, I'm not so sure they shouldn't throw it away. I don't know. I still believe though that when you're doing an auction, they ought to have anything's being donated to the club is auctioned first, because that's when the best money usually shows up. I don't know that bowl shows have that many participants anymore. I think, you know, I think they're kind of a pain. I know at our aquarium society we have we've got 2 guys in particular that tend to win most of the time because they're the ones that bring most of the time. I think breeding programs have to be overhauled. I'm not sure how to do it, but if somebody can't figure out a way to get more people involved, I think they ought to throw those out too. I'm not a fan of doing something just because we've always done it. If it's not being effective, if you don't have participation, then why do it? Same with grow out competitions, newsletters. You know, good luck if you can find somebody that'll do it, but you know, you got to get leadership behind it, and a lot of times the leaders in the aquarium societies, I don't know how to say it nicely, so I'll just say it. A lot of times they're people that want to be in control and they want to be in touchy-feely on everything. If you got too many of those newsletter editors, unless it's one on your board, they're probably not going to be able to do stuff. Not every aquarium society is like that. Some are, some aren't. You know, whatever. I think aquarium societies as a whole do not use social media and the internet effectively. And I could go on and on about that. I would say this: if your officers do not use social media, if they're not reachable, then get new officers. If you have a Facebook page for your aquarium society, then the officers ought to be monitoring it. If you're putting out a newsletter, then the officers ought to be contributing, every single one of them. If, you know, your officers all ought to have email address. In this day and age, no excuse not to. If they don't have a computer, then they should buy a smartphone, or you should elect a new officer. I'm not trying to get down on the old guys, but like in our Aquarium Society, pretty sure every one of those old farts have a email. I do. Hey, no, seriously, you know, I somewhat visit Rocky Mountain Cichlid Association. I know their officers have email and monitor some Facebook stuff and so forth and so on. And Colorado Aquarium Society, I know mostly they have emails. I don't know how many, but you know, it's just my opinion. Take it or leave it, like it or not my problem. But I really believe your officers need to be involved in social media in this day and age. It's the only way you're going to improve the group. That's the way a lot of people are going to get to know you. And I'm not talking about officers that have Facebook and they watch it every day. No. I'm talking about officers that are sharing from the wisdom they have. I know in the 2 Aquarium Societies I just mentioned, the officers there have a lot of experience and wisdom. And you know, as far as I can see, most of them are sharing or willing to share. Not quite all in social media as much as in person, but if you want to go to one of their houses, you know, they'll sit and talk with you, and I love that. One of the things I've seen a couple of Aquarium Societies doing these days, and we didn't do it in Portland, but I know others did it back then, is swapping fish. You know, we have, you know how Aquarium Societies tend to get one fish that you got 10 people that are breeding it, and so they all bring them to the auctions, and so everyone's got more. Box up 50 of those, let the club pay everyone appropriate for their fish, and I'm not talking retail prices here, I'm talking like a 25% of that. You're doing this for the club people, and then you make the arrangements with another club to swap for an equal or appropriate amount of a different variety of fish, and it doesn't have to be one species. You can figure it out. I like that idea, but again, the problem is your people have to have room for those fish when the new fish come in. So you have to get buy-in beforehand. You have to have a large enough club to make it work, but it's a great idea. I like it. A few of the clubs do internet purchases from fish farms and so forth. I know at our semi-annual auctions, our Aquarium Societies do that, and I really like that. If there were 5 people in the club that wanted to get together and make one major purchase, you know, I don't know how big the fish farm wants it to be, but you're cutting out the middleman. Sorry, local fish store, I'm hurting you here, but you know, an Aquarium Society that gets 5, 10, 20 people that all want to make one purchase, or maybe 2 or 3, I don't know what the rules would be. It's not a bad way to go. I've never done it, don't know. Back in the old days, the greatest speakers we had for our monthly meeting used slide projectors with color pictures, and then they'd talk. Now, some of them were interesting, some of them were boring. Some people know how to make public presentations, some people don't. Some of the smartest and best fish collectors and fish breeders and fish keepers in the world can't make a presentation worth staying awake for. But their pictures are often good. I would caution Aquarium Societies against having boring speakers. Nothing kills a meeting more than a boring speaker. I don't care what their credentials are. You got a boring speaker, it's a nightmare. I was a software engineer. I went to conferences, and sometimes the speakers, now, you got to understand, this was a whole bunch of geeks and super geeks, and they didn't mind boring. But some of those speakers were, well, this is a very exciting topic I want to share with you today. You are going to find it riveting. Let's start with a binomial expression of the, no, come on, people. Can you imagine me doing that? No, when I went to speak, I was flamboyant and bouncing around, and my boss was usually sitting in the front row going, but people liked to listen to what I had to say because it was different. And yeah, I actually knew what I was talking about. Not trying to boast too much here, but that's beyond the point. If you want a speaker, find somebody that knows how to talk, and then make sure he knows the information too. One example is Colorado Aquarium Society. Last year brought in a guy that goes by Dustin's Fish Tanks. Now, nobody's going to call him boring. Nobody. That guy, he bounces, he jumps, he inflects his voice all over the place. And he actually knows what he's talking about. Now, I know people that know a whole lot more about fish than him, and I probably know some people that know more about plants than he does, but he's very good at sharing what he knows. He admits when he doesn't know something, and he is an interesting speaker. And that's one example. The biggest YouTubers, they make interesting speakers, and you got plenty of examples out there. Why are they the biggest YouTubers? Because they're interesting to listen to. If you talk in a monotone, you do not become a great big internet sensation on YouTube and have tens of thousands of viewers because nobody wants to listen to that. And that's the truth. The last thing I'd say about speakers would be get some of your local people. Maybe they're not as good. Colorado's got a plethora of highly intelligent people in the fish world. Some of them are very good speakers, some of them not so good. You know, and another thing, a good speaker knows when to quit. So I'm about done here. I hope I'm a good speaker. Some of you think so. All I know is I want my Aquarium Society to be fun. I'm not a big participant because I have travel issues with my health, and it's 130 miles one way. But when I go, I want to have fun. A lot of good people there. I enjoy them. So I go. Be real easy for me to skip. So what I'm saying, pleading with Aquarium Societies of today is do what works. Don't do what doesn't work. If people aren't participating, change. We've always done it that way is a terrible reason to do it that way. Unless it's working. And let your people have fun. That's what it's all about. Have fun. Bye.